You are charged with the responsibility ya maji ya the whole country. Of course you've served in other ministries mpaka ya youth pia. But specifically ya maji. Wase wa umoja najua wana watch na tumewaenjoy sana. How does it come to the point ya watu wengine hawajaiona maji kabisa? How hard is it for all people to get access to water?
Well, let me thank you, Dr. Kingori, first for having me here.
Karibu.
And, you know, I'm a fan of yours, and I laugh. When I have a moment to laugh, I watch and I laugh.
Asante. That's high praise.
But to also say, ungesema kidogo, Kangaroo DB School today has a facelift. It's beautiful, it's nice. CS Sicily Kariuki has made an effort to give it a facelift in the last 2 years. And I've sponsored a few projects around there, including a livelihood support project for the school.
Okay.
But having said that, you know, you always go back where your roots would be, and that is why anytime I go to visit my mother, you know, that is so in my eyes. I keep wondering what can be done and be improved, like I do across any other space where I have been. But come back to Umoja, na mambo ya mzee wa Umoja hana maji. What has happened is that over time, the population has grown beyond the investments that have been made in matters water.
Okay.
You know, we have witnessed a population explosion, especially in Nairobi. That is one. There hasn't been much infrastructural improvement, particularly in the last 10 years when water became a concurrent function. Concurrent meaning it's a function that is shared between the national government and the county governments. The county governments have hardly invested in water, yet the population has been growing for that time horizon. And that explains why you witness water shortages largely. There's not a problem why the mzee in Umoja may not have water. There's a lot of leakage. Yani, some of it because of the old pipeline conveying water. Imechambuka maji na leak yenyewe tu. I'm sure when you go around town, you see maji inatiririka.
Yes.
But we also have criminals, you know, in town, everywhere. So that some of them actually, ndio wana chota ile maji, wana, how do you say, they cause it to be, wanavunja ile pipeline.
Yes.
Right? Cartel, there is a big cartel industry around water, like most other sectors. Na hiyo maji wanachota, unaona kuna water boozers mingi sana, kuuza maji kule na kule kwengine.
Okay.
It's, you know, criminal activity. So those three are the major factors that will contribute that mzee in Umoja does not have water. But it's not a lost game, because by the time I left the Ministry of Water, there was phenomenal investment, you know, to bring additional water, particularly into Nairobi.
Okay.
We have a project that I'm very proud of called Karimino 2, a huge dam. It will be bringing hundreds of liters of water into Nairobi. There is another one called the Northern Collector in Muranga, again, huge project. It will be bringing in water. And I want to believe by the time I left, there were the tail end of completion. There were 3 months to go. So I want to believe I've been gone for 2 months. In another 1 month to 2 months, there will be sufficient water in Nairobi. And what we did in my days also, the dam taps the water, we trap the water, we hold the water in storage, but then it is conveyed through the infrastructure. And the infrastructure is already in situ, it is in place. Because as we were doing the dam work, we were also now working on the pipeline. So we will have sufficient water covering the Eastlands area, covering, if you will, all the way to Kitengela, yes, covering all the way Kajiado areas. And so it's a matter of time, and I'm talking about months. I am very conscious that the president is very, very keen.
Okay.
Because everybody knows we're having a challenge with sufficiency of water into Nairobi. Okay.
The first reason, the first cause for water shortage, population growth. Does this mean that now basi family planning should happen near boreholes? Like, ukileta mtoto lazima ujue atakunywa nini, so that we can control that from that point?
Hapana, wacha watoto wakama ina shida. Ndio nakwambia kutakuwa kuna maji ni vile to with the devolution a few things got destabilized, okay, in terms of priority, but I'm giving you the assurance that in a matter of months there will be sufficient water in Nairobi, coming, okay, into Nairobi. However, I always spoke to, and I want to speak to the Kenyan, ordinary Kenyan, wacha kuiba maji. I mean, don't steal water and then, you know, make business out of it. But even you, an ordinary citizen, you use water responsibly, you know, because kama maji, sio kama oxygen tuseme, you know, itaisha. Kama kwa hii kiangazi unaona maji imepunguka sana. Hata kama kwa zile dams, you know, so we use the water responsibly. It's called civic responsibility. Okay. Everybody takes responsibility. The national government invests like they have invested. The county government needs to invest as they are required to invest. You, the ordinary Kenyan, once the water gets to you, we use it like it's a resource that can get exhausted, because water does get exhausted. But importantly, you, the citizen, also, jifunze tu kuharvest maji. Wakati nilikuwa pale, we passed a law and regulations which is requiring institutions of a certain magnitude. Harvesting water becomes a mandatory thing. Sababu kikinyesha na tushiki yale maji, it means it's just, the runoff goes to Indian Ocean. And then kiangazi ikija, we get ourselves in this situation. Na so everybody takes responsibility. Kama
kuna sheria ya kushika watu waja harvest maji, the whole county government would be in jail, because kukinyesha maji inakuanga inapita huku. People ask, if the government harvested this water, tungekuwa tunakosa maji. Ni
kila pahali. Sijui kama tutakamata kila mtu atatoshea wapi sasa. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It is civic responsibility. Ni kila mtu pahali yuko. When it gets to rainy season, just have it in your own water harvesting mechanism, even without being forced to do it. But institutions of a certain magnitude, yani size, wale ndio wanatakiwa watii sheria. Yes.
Okay, sawa sawa. Na kama ulikuwa mnajua cartels, kuna cartels za water bozzers. Mbona msikuje na rule ya kuwasimamisha? Hii maji umetoa wapi?
There was a solution which is IT driven, where all the water bozzers needed to account for where they are sourcing the water from, you know, through metering system, but also that is monitored using an IT solution. Okay. I want to be hopeful that that will be implemented, because we piloted it and it was going to be useful, so that also we do not have water bozzers by night being converted to exhausters. So there is a hygiene question that we are trying to deal with.
Kuna watu wanaweza kuwa na roho ya convert a water bozzer into a exhauster usiku na mchana inabeba maji.
Wewe unajua watu ni watu. Biashara kuna wale ukiita mtu cartel ama mkora, so unajua atafanya chochote ile. So yeah.
What's the scariest things you learned about water in your position as CS for water? Scary ama shocking things kama hiyo unasema ya exhauster. Things that the extent that at which some people would go to deny others water ama to, as in just water hiyo kama hizo makatels. What's the scariest thing?
Mimi hata maji haikunitisha sana. Ile kitu ilinitisha sana ni mambo ya sanitation. You know, one time we spoke about the flying toilets in some slum area.
Yes.
Na ile if you follow Nairobi River today,
yes,
unaona ile uchafu iko pale.
Yes.
So what was not a very exciting thing is that exhausters would come by night na inamwaga ile pupu.
Yes.
Kwa mto, na unaona ni mto, na chini pale kuna mtu anangojea yale maji. That
yes, that's sad.
Is ugly.
But then I saw some stats that only 29% of Kenyans have, was it UNICEF, I think, one of the organizations affiliated to the UN, that only 29% of Kenyans have access to basic sanitation. Over 70% ya Wakenya ni kujipanga.
Maybe I can make a clarification. 29% sanitation coverage, right? You are speaking about seaward sanitation.
Yes.
You know, where you come from at home, you may not be on sewer connection. And therefore you're okay. Wewe uko kwa ile hesabu. So it's good to have that interpretation. The seaward connections are what is metered, can be measured, and is under regulation. Lakini most of the people in the rural areas, hawana shida, but you know they are not on a sewer connection. They are not on the system.
Oh, that was scary. Thank you for clarifying that. Nifikiria 70% ni kwa kichaka. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. And what's like the pressure of being a CS?
Enough.
We assume that you get to meet the president every day kumwambia hakuna maji umoja na ndio asifanye kitu. As in, we assume na wasio umoja. As in, what's the pressure like? Yeah.
Ni mingi, ni mob sana, lakini kujipanga. That is why you spend 16 hours of your working day, you know, figuring out solutions, and also, you know, because you cannot be there and you are expected to keep running to the president. You go to the president with a solution, with your thought process. You've thought through. You engage your people so that they are part of finding the solution. you know. So there is enough pressure, and you can't fail. Really, you can't fail. By the time you are arriving there,
Yes.
The assumption and the belief in you is that you cannot fail. You got to give a solution even to the most awkward things. When I came to the Ministry of Water it was on 28th February of 2020. Thing is, we were just getting into the corona phase. And I was, for 6 weeks, I was both holding brief, the Minister of Health, because I was exiting, and also being the minister newly appointed to water.
Yes.
And it was one of my most trying moments, because you're having solutions around the corona pandemic. Nobody can understand what it is. Least of all, the experts that we have not been exposed to this. But on the other hand, you're being told one of the major solutions is washing hands. There isn't water, like you said, in the slum, for example.
Yes.
And the question was, how are you going to deal with this pandemic in the very densely populated spaces without water? And that is how come we came with a solution of sinking 100 boreholes in 100 days in the slums, as was directed then by Cabinet and by the President. I executed that with a team. It was phenomenal. It was very fulfilling to see that within a very short time we were able to come up with a solution. Up till now, because we were able to expand those boreholes from 100 in 100 days to an additional 93 in another 100 days. So in the slums today, you go to any slum, there's clean water, it is free water, and it is safe water. And therefore, that's why we did not experience a lot of, the mess in terms of corona in the slums. But importantly, the cases of cholera that used to be reported as when I was a Minister of Health have not been reported ever since. So it was a solution that came with a lot of additional benefits.
Okay.
And you got to figure out the solution. Lazima unajipanga we mwenyewe. Ukienda pale kuongea na rais, uwe umefikiria. You've worn the shoes, because there is one president at a time, and there are 22 of us in cabinet. And below us, we have principal secretaries, and below that, we have chief executive officers. Below that, we have subject experts, and you got to harness their knowledge, their expertise, and you have to keep them motivated, and you have to keep work going, and you got to challenge them, and you got to deal with cases which, when they go wrong, you also take responsibility. You got to ask them to step out, to step on the side, out of the space, if they are not helping in bringing solutions. So it's a full-time job.
Okay, and how safe is the boreholes? Because in our research doing this topic, one of the things that came up ni hizo maboreholes zinakuanga na high levels of fluoride, zinafanya wase wanakuwa na meno za brown, mtu anakuwa pasta na hajai kula veve, alafu inafika place you can't even explain that this is something that haitai kukupata by choice. How safe are the boreholes?
There's a technology that would be employed where the fluoride levels are very high. It's called reverse osmosis, and it becomes one of the solutions that is found where the levels are that high. In other places, normally the water would be sufficient and good for use, because what happens is that the geologists and the hydrologists, by the time they are moving the water for use, they will have run some tests to ensure that it's fit for human consumption.
Okay.
And if it isn't, then you employ the technology.
Okay. Sawa. It's a good thing to actually have you on the show, because you can speak for at least 3 ministers, because you've served in those different positions. And then again, surviving in government for more than 9 years, kwa kuchaguliwa na president kurudi hapo, it's not an easy, it's not a mean feat. The question is, mtu kama ajui personality yako anasema we ni deep state, but how, no for real, how do you get to survive kutoka hii government, urudi na uingie, okay, it's the same government, but not that many people made it from this place to kurudi tena. How hard is it to survive now from your perspective?
It's very tough. It's very, very tough. I have been very privileged to have served in 3 administrations. I was the manager, Ken Invest, responsible for promotion and attraction of investors in the regime of President Moi, the late. I then transited to be the CEO and T under President Kibaki. And then I was then lucky to come in President Kenyatta's administration. The lower you are, the safer you are. Because if you are just a manager, then it's okay. There are many of you. The minute you become a CEO, then your head is a little bit higher, and therefore you can be an attraction depending on how you do your thing. But I have learned that for as long as you keep to the law, it doesn't matter. Somehow you get through. And of course, God's grace. So do the right thing, follow the law. I do remember in my tea days as a CEO, because then we were struggling to have the sector grow. I do recall some people who you can call them deep state now, depending on that definition, had gotten licenses, not following the law. And, there were powerful people in government then, and I came in and I said, you know what? We play by the law. This is the law. It was passed in Parliament. It requires you to behave in a certain way. And therefore, although you have a license, I am actually going to void it. So I voided the license and it became a piece of paper. And this person, God rest his soul, got very stubborn. And he said, and who is this Kariuki? What? Who is this? And I said, this Kariuki is a very private person, gentleman. Only I am doing my job as per law. Yeah. And I withdrew the license and the rest is history. And I said, if you comply, because I know you can comply, I will reinstate the license. 5 years later, I did reinstate the license. So play by the law, it's very, very helpful. It's always very, very useful. But coming to be the principal secretary for the 2 years that I was a principal secretary, again, a competitive process. There are only 26 of us. The whole nation is watching you. And the moves that you take matter much. Because if you're the principal secretary responsible for agriculture, then it means every corner of this country is watching and is dependent on the decisions that you make. And therefore, you're extremely very, very careful. But importantly, because you also find people to counsel you, you find people to mentor you. You have a president who is accessible so you can make reference. If things get very tough, he's still the boss, you can make reference. But I would rather you go to him with solutions and you can pick one of the many, because then the pros and cons, why are you proposing this and not the other? Coming to cabinet, which was in November of 2015, was both a surprise to me as it was to a lot of people. Because cabinet, you don't apply. Principal secretary, I applied. I went through the interviews. These are the one you don't apply.
The president decides.
You are watching the news and he even for a moment doesn't quite remember your name very well.
You did not know kabisa that the president will choose you? Kabisa.
No, I knew he was going to do something the day he promoted me because I had been told not to leave town, Was he your friend before? The president?
Yes.
He's your friend as well, isn't he?
He's always No, I'm talking about the personal capacity. For him to give you such a responsibility, you must know each other.
Not necessarily.
For real?
Not necessarily.
The president can surprise you with a job?
Not necessarily. I didn't know President Kibaki when I was given to head a very important docket. I didn't. Mm-hmm. But it's always useful because the minute that happens, you people out here, you think it must be a connection. So, I was viewed to be part of the family. In fact, that time, people recognized me to be originating from Nyeri.
Okay. Yes.
I hadn't even met him, at a personal level. So you didn't need to be President Uhuru Kenyatta's a close friend to be in cabinet and to be the principal secretary, because I believe he really wanted to professionalize the space.
Okay.
And that is why the principal secretary's process was very competitive. There was 3,000 applicants for 26 positions.
Oh, for the other jobs, there is over 20 million of us.
Yes.
Yes. For less than 1 million jobs.
Yes.
Now, in terms of pressure ya job, uko kwa cabinet, you've never gotten to a point ya kuambia hata president, wewe pia kaa na kazi yako. As in, you don't have those moments.
You get to those moments.
For real?
Yeah, you get to those moments. You do get to those moments. And what you do, if you are somebody like me, I like finding solutions.
Yes.
I like to be in challenging spaces because that is how I've grown. But when you get to that moment, you go to a colleague because, then, and you say, this is where I am at today. I just may not. I can't face tomorrow.
There are times you see the president phone, unakata ama unalenga.
And they will tell you, your colleagues will tell you know what? In my brain, I resigned last week, but I am here. So when you compare notes, you would realize, it's not so bad after all, okay? So you form a peer pressure group that you keep on bouncing ideas and asking how you faring, how is it today, for me, kwangu imekuwa mbaya sana jana, So you keep going. And you look at yourself and say, you've been so privileged to be the 22 of you. How can you quit? And for me, the pressure has been more because I've mentored girls. What will they say? A cabinet minister who is a lady and you walk away, what image am I sending?
Okay.
To, you know, the women, really, because we've been asking for space as women leaders.
Okay.
So it keeps you there. The family holds you there, and they give you support. Sometimes they don't think you know even your name, because, you know, that's the nature of the job, but they give you space. And,
okay, nice. Yeah. And I think you've said something very interesting, that you mentor young girls, right? Yes. We have a few young girls up and a few young boys, and a young gentlemen, yes, and ladies in your process to become the CS. And for me, it hits different because najua mahali kangaru iko, right? What is the truth about your process that someone who's not started your journey yet, someone who's just left high school, can borrow from to chart their own path?
Brilliant, Tonya, a good one. You got to believe in yourself, you know, your self-esteem, your confidence, and the journey that you're walking, it's really so much about you. But on the other hand, you must be willing to drive yourself as a slave, your own slave, not waiting to be told. Meaning you set your goals, you set your targets, and you go for them. Number 3, don't wait to be patted. Nobody will pat you. I mean, it's a tough journey for you to succeed, but you must be willing to work extremely, very, very hard. I had 9-year stint in the private sector. When I left Ken Invest, I moved into the private sector as a manager, and I rose to be a CEO of an organization called the Fresh Produce Exporters Association of Kenya. You know, we were starting up, setting the fresh export and flowers sector. It grew. And that is the same time I went back to school for my master's. And it was a very, very tricky balancing act. I had a young family. I had this tough job. I'm back in school. I'm a wife. I have a mother. I have friends. That balancing act. But I remember my colleagues in class then saying, why do you work so hard? I mean, that's not your work. That's not your company. You're employed. You've got to have the right attitude to succeed. It doesn't matter that you're employed. You must treat it like it is your business.
Okay.
You must, therefore, if you look at a few things, how do you treat your business if you want it to grow, or your own home, or your kitchen? You can't steal from your own kitchen, you know? You can't steal from your own business. So your levels of integrity must drive you to behave as if it is my business, even when it's a public sector.
Okay.
Among other things that I can see.
Sawa, sawa.
Yes.
And in the life cycle of a lady, when I again take you back, there are people who assume that there are mistakes that are acceptable in someone's process of growth, right? Come away after high school ukiwa campus, right? Did you have a chance to maybe slay alafu utaokoka baadaye? Did you have those moments? As in, were you a survivor of such? Before you got married, ulikutana na wakora? As in, unajua wakora? As in, time yenu ya campus, watu walikuwa wakora?
That's a very delicate question. My son is here. I don't know how to answer. He can say. But let me put it this way.
Yes.
We got to leave that cycle for us to mature, because that is just how it is. College time is college time, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, I loved a good dance, you know, like most of the people here.
Okay. Yes.
I loved going for my karate lessons, because that we must live that life.
Now I know how you survived for 9 years in government, in Jubilee government. Ukiwa na karate, I think no one can, mtu hawezi joke na. You did karate?
Yes, I did. With my current husband. He was then my friend.
You did karate with your husband?
He was then my friend.
No, he was your friend?
Yes.
Mukaenda karate ndio
tunaenda lessons. Tunaenda lessons pamoja, tunaenda hiyo maneno.
Now what was the motivation ya muende karate?
It was keeping fit, actually. I love keeping fit. I do. I still do. So it was just one of those games when, you know, you are not jogging, you're not running, you're not doing this. I just found it, you know.
Karate?
Yes.
Did you ever find yourself as a family applying the need of using what you had learned?
No, never. No. No, it went to waste, but yeah.
It went to waste?
Yeah.
You've never applied your karate anywhere?
No.
So your karate ni kama vile si tulisoma pipette?
Ni vile unaenda gym tu na weights. You lift your weight. You don't hit somebody with it, isn't it? It's for you, it's your well-being. But then defense, just in case. I'm also a Girl Scout, you know.
Na ulifika level gani ya karate?
si kupita amateur.
Ulikuwa tu amateur. But now that your son is here, are there instances your two family discipline? How do you balance between a professional karate na pia an African mother?
Haipelekani. Doc,
you unaeka karate kando?
Doc, you know, in college,
yes,
you find your space by doing things which you think are extraordinary, they excite you. That's why you go, mountaineering. That's when you go biking. That's when you go long distance, those things. You do them at that age, isn't it?
Yes.
So for me, it was really just one of those ones. It wasn't because I ever was going to need it. I am lucky I don't come from a family that has witnessed violence.
Yes.
I couldn't therefore bring it into my space either.
Yes.
Yes, and I love peace. I'm very peace-loving.
Professor P.L.O. Lumumba was on the show. He said the same thing.
Yes.
He's a karate, I think, he's on the black belt level, still doesn't use karate.
Yes.
Why is it that the rest of us who have not learned karate ndio tunajipata kwa places where we need karate? I can't seem to understand that. I also, tulikuwa pia na engagement na ya pia, mtu wako na karate hata hana haja ya kutumia.
Ni kweli.
You don't feel like you wasted those years?
No, I didn't.
But sometimes hata basi inamaanisha you can have a bodyguard just as a formality.
Actually, yes.
You can do his job.
Yes.
Mtu akikujaribu pia unaweza ingia na kitenge.
Sijajipata pale.
So and in terms of employment, in your manifesto for the office you're running for now in Nyandarua, you say that you're going to solve unemployment, right?
Yes.
What is it about unemployment in this country that we always talk about it just before going for office? You have experience in employment, you have experience in government. We are tired of, I believe everyone is tired of people looking for jobs. What is the solution as a problem solver?
Three solutions come very quickly to my mind. One, when I was a minister responsible for youth, gender and public service,
yes,
I was privileged to put up over 2,000 circles for the youth and women across the country. And these young men, every time I go up to the village and they come up to me and say, because of the circle that you put us together, we were able to save 7 million shillings. 30 of us. Wow. And now, while at the end we split the money, I went and set up an agrovet. Now I've employed 3 young people. Now I have contracted 6 border riders that go distributing the seeds, the fertilizers, and those materials. And I feel very, very good about that. It's a very simple solution to a very needy and weighty problem. So that is one. So I want to reinstate that mechanism because I saw it work. I've seen young men across Nyandarua come up and say, I'm doing well because very little effort. Number one. Number two, I have been speaking to several stakeholders, call them investors. Recall I told you I started my job as an investment officer, wrote to become an investment manager in Ken Invest. And so I have an idea, not just a database of people that are looking to invest. A lot of professionals from Nyandarua, huge. Including your own CEO from here, it's from Nyandarua, are looking to have an enabling environment to go back, because you can't be on CSR forever, to invest. And by investing, it means I'll be employing the young people in the villages. Number 3, I've been speaking to some of the leading, farmers, modern farmers.
Yes.
One is the largest single dairy farmer in Nyandarua. And I've been talking to him, and he would like to set up an outgrower system. By so I mean to enable the neighborhood to have hybrid livestock that yields more milk, that it can be the outlet to market, that it can move to cottage industries. So you see the value chain becomes complete, and it carries the community. I've been speaking to another one across in a place called Ndaragwa, just next to Laikipia. He has huge investment in fish ponds on 1 acre, and I went to visit him, and we were computing the kind of money he makes from 1 pond. 4 million shillings. 1 pond. He has about 8 of them.
Over a period of?
Yes.
A month?
No, 1 year. Inside 1 year. He'll be turning 4 million.
Yes.
In one. And we did agree with him that when I get in, because Faith tells me I'm moving in as a next governor of Nyandarua, we will set up the young people, convert this into a training center that they can be mentored and enabled to go and set up similar. Simple solutions, practical, being done in other places, and so it will be done. Now, yesterday I went to a place called Makutano in Kinangop Engineer, and I met these young men, and I said, what would you want your leader to do for you so that you stop being all over here and being idle? And I was very happy for them to tell me, one, we are happy that we are seeing you harness the talent that we have in Nyandarua, because we have the leading, we have the largest number of artists, folklore. Some of them are working in the media, some of them are performing DJ Fatso, DJ Afro, Gatutura Jose, Samido, that caliber, yes. Meru Wangeshi. And they've come to be able to support me because I believe going back home, setting up talent centers, they are able to mentor the young people. And so yesterday the young men told me, we can see that it is possible we'll be mentored by one of the best, although we are in the village. Simple solutions, and that's what I'm looking to do, among other things.
Sawa sawa. And having served, you're moving from the national government to the county government. Being a CS on the national platform, is there a pressure to deliver to your people? Because this is why people say, for example, on the presidential level, people have this attachment to mtu wetu akipewa anaenda kutufanyia, mtu wetu akipewa anaenda kutufanyia. Have you dealt with that? Like people of Nyandarua, hakuna mahali kunafaa kukosa maji kama mtu wetu ni CS wa maji. How do you handle the pressure na to make sure kuna mtu mwingine Lodwa anapata equal opportunity with someone who is in Nyandarua?
Is a natural phenomena, is a natural thing for you to feel the pressure to want to serve your people. That it's a natural thing everywhere, yes. That it happens. But when you're at the national level, you have to be very careful because equity and distribution of resources also becomes one of your constitutional imperatives. And therefore, you can't deny somebody in West Pokot access to water because you want everything being taken to your village. And the reason I did 2 years as Minister for Water, I was able to do what perhaps has not happened in Nyandarua in matters water. Just as I was able to do what has never been done in Kwale with the Mwache Dam, one of the biggest dams that I was able to unlock, and work is ongoing. So you got to be careful to make sure you're still national. We call it, global national level, but local because finally you're going to go home. Yes.
Okay. Sawa sawa. And your greatest lesson dealing with Kenyans?
They do appreciate when you speak less and do more. When you speak less and do more, they do appreciate.
When you speak less and do more.
And do more. And this is the experience I'm getting through. I go to corners and villages where people are like, we saw you on TV the other time, we heard you on radio the other time, but we know you to be, a very action-oriented person. Yes. Even though we've not met you, there is water at that corner, we've heard about a dam the other corner. So you don't need to really scream on top of your voice for people, but people see action. A lesson I took out of my boss, the president, because he said, work, watu wataona kazi yako, so you don't have to. So focus, fanya kazi yako. And that is what he's done over the last 9.5 years. He's done a lot of work. Hardly does he get out to shout, yes. But he says the time has come now, I'll get out. And I tell you what I've been doing all this time. So it's a lesson that I've learned, and Kenyans listen, they're intelligent, they know.
Okay. So before we let you go, one of our audience members, Aliuliza, the Constitution prohibits cabinet secretaries from participating in politics. And we saw some getting involved in politics. You resigned, by the way, that's very noble. You resigned, and then ukasema unenda kurun for office in Nyandarua. Was it like pressure ya serikali, ukifanyia serikali kazi, lazima pia usupport serikali?
No, it isn't really pressure, and I want to make a correction. Yes. Cabinet secretaries, yes, are not disallowed from doing politics. Yes, that is a law. Any other person, if you're not a cabinet secretary, then you got to think twice what you're doing. But cabinet secretary, view it this way: I am, as cabinet secretary, the direct appointee and representative of the president. The president is in State House. He has business that touches on politics or economics in Kwale. you don't expect him to be in Kwale. So the agent is going to be me, the minister. And therefore, the law is careful not to stop you from projecting the politician's will to the people. That's one. Number two, the issue of pressure for me to come and you know, run for the office for which I am running was actually a very, very personal decision, extremely very personal. Over time, as I interacted with the people of Nyandarua, I saw some very obvious things that can be fixed very, very quickly. And when some of the friends and some of the people in Mashinani approached me and they said, won't you consider? I came to the family and the family said, well, if that's you're calling for now, just like I'm saying, business people in Mombasa, in Nairobi, in other places, who originated from Nyandarua, are suddenly saying, handouts will not work. So we are going home so we can invest and bring a difference at home. So it was very personal. And I took over 1 year just persuading myself that it can be done and I can do it and I'll be comfortable doing it. And my family said, if you're happy, we'll support you. I then, of course, consulted some of my colleagues. Some thought it wasn't such a great idea. Some said, go for it. The reason we've been asking for leadership by women in political spaces, remember I was one for 2 years. I was a minister responsible for gender issues. The reason we're pushing the 2/3 gender bill is so that some of you can stick out and do it, untidy as it may look.
Yes.
And therefore I was very encouraged. And the church came together and they said, church from Nyandarua, and they said, we stand with you. Should you make this decision, we'll be encouraged and we'll support you. And so I was getting, you know, signals from everywhere. But the most difficult one was for me going to the president and saying, you know what, I am your cabinet secretary. I think I still have some unfinished business, but allow me to move. That was a little bit of, you know, a difficult one. We had a conversation and initially he said, you have some time. Have you thought about it completely? Yes, I said, okay, go and take your time and think a little more and then, you know, come back. And so it happened. So when I came back was actually the last day. The deadline was the following. And, you know, he said, I'm okay. If you're happy with it, your family is happy with it. Who am I? And, you know, we said bye-bye and said you're going to continue being my party leader because I'm running on Jubilee. And the rest of it is history. The following day, I was minus official vehicles. I had very little cover, you know.
Immediately.
Security. That's how it works. I turned it out myself personally.
Okay.
I didn't want to, you know, to carry baggage. The following morning, the same night I resigned, I didn't have my official vehicles. Okay. And off I went to the village, you know, went and said bye-bye to my boss, and the rest is history. Niko pale kwa mashinani, niko kwa trench.
Na tunakuwish all the best.
Thank you.
Your profile reads a family person, staunch family person, kabisa. Yes. You mentioned it. Yes. One of the articles I read about you, you said Sundays are dedicated family time.
Yes.
If I may ask, because we'll need your advice as a mom to the younger generation, most of us here are, how long have you been married?
Oh, many years.
Many years?
Yes, 30 years.
Oh, 30 years?
30 years.
You've been married for as long as I've been alive?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nice. Now, we noticed an interesting trend. Most relationships nowadays, we have a grace period of, is it 6 months? Yeah. 4 months to divorce. Now, what is the secret that your generation knew that you will celebrate your marriage 30 years later, na sisi, watu hata wakika 2 weeks. 2 weeks without posting a black flower, that's something. What was the secret of your generation?
Well, one, recall the parents that brought us up had a tolerance that you can't understand. And so you learned from that level of tolerance. But importantly, some of us made very deliberate decisions. Personally, I'm getting married so that I am married. You know, I had a choice of not being married, you know. But it's a decision that I made, and I said, whichever way, we're going to make it work. It's not always that, it's not every day that is Sunday, you know, but you got to make it work because I'm determined to make things work. Again, recall, I'm a solution finder. I find solutions. I don't sit lamenting over things that, you know, even when they're very, very tough, I get around it and I get a solution. So that's why I'm at it. And I'm also lucky. My, 2 sisters also are older than me. They also are married and stable, many years longer than I. Mine is 32, by the way. I told you 30. I'm minimizing. I've been
Wow.
married 32 years.
You rounded it off backwards.
Yes.
I also think the karate helps because either of you, no one can dare walk out because you don't know what your partner is capable of because you've trained all those years pamoja. Asante sana for coming to our show. I'm avoiding the temptation to ask you questions about the Ministry of Health, which you held fought for. Alafu pia in the interest of time, I don't think we can go into the Ministry of Youth, the things that you've done there, but we hope tukiweza kukupata tena, we can stretch the conversation further.
Nitarudi, wacha kwanza niende nipiganie tikiti ya nomination ya Jubilee.
Kwa ground.
There are two of us. Wacha niende nipiganie.
Two of you.
Yes.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you very
Wapi
much.
makofi ya waziri?